And good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of JMU Sound Off. I am Jonathan McNamara, coming to you tonight from Richmond, Virginia, the James Madison University Dukes, the lone undefeated team in the Sun Belt. And we're going to talk about that tonight as we get set for this weekend's big noon contest, nationally televised against Georgia Southern. We will have a preview of that game. Big episode tonight. We have Scooter Renkin, Associate Athletic Director for Development from James Madison University, on to talk about new campaign launching in November called Diggin' Dukes. We're also really happy to bring on tonight Rodgers, Soenksen, a member of the SMAD faculty and a faculty athletic rep, and somebody who I'm intrigued to talk to tonight just because a different perspective for me when I'm not in the classroom with Dr. Soenksen. He told me I can call him Roger. I'm not going to be able to get that. I can tell you tonight. And then finally, we have Danny Reed from the Georgia Southern Sports Network, and we'll check in with Annie Rodgers, our student correspondent. But before we bring in the guys for tonight's episode, want to thank our sponsors, as always, from Skyline Financial Partners, as well as the Montpelier Collective. If you follow our social media accounts this week, you saw we were able to get a new banner that we'll be taking on the road for some live broadcasts we're going to be announcing over the weeks to come. So as always, thank you to our sponsors. You can learn more about the Montpelier Collective at montpeliercollective.com and Skyline Financial Partners at skylinefinancialpartners.com. And with that, we'll bring in the three other members of our Sound Off team: Steve Brown, Michael Evangelista, and Taylor Adkins. First of all, guys, are you rested? Did you enjoy the bye week? And anything catch your eye from a weekend of being able to maybe enjoy some football without a high heart rate or high blood pressure from the Cardiac Dukes being on their break? We'll start with you. Taylor, would you see this weekend that caught your eye? Anything in the bye that caught your attention or you're thinking about going into this week against Georgia Southern?
I was paying attention to some of the opponents that we've played over the last few weeks and just thought it was interesting that other than Bucknell, every single one of them won. Every single one of them won against what was good competition. I know a lot of folks are kind of making fun of UVA playing it so close with William & Mary. For those who aren't still following FCS football, William & Mary is a top 10 team. And, normally we would expect a top 10 FCS team to beat a bottom tier FBS team. So I think for the fact for UVA, given the circumstances, to still come out, beat William & Mary by 14, I think that's a good win for UVA. Troy, 34-point win over Arkansas State. Utah State was down to Colorado State early, if that sounds familiar, but they came back, beat Colorado State by 20. If you remember a few weeks ago, the Colorado State game with Prime Time and his team, that's a good win. And the South Alabama game over Louisiana Monroe, 55-7. And that was the Louisiana Monroe team that took App State down to the wire, that App State needed a game-winning field goal. So all that to be said, I'm bringing all these up because I feel like I've been maybe a little pessimistic about our competition in the last few weeks, but it's turning out right now. The last three opponents that we've had all have records, either winning records or they're right at 500. So I'm excited about where the Dukes are. I'm excited about the game this weekend. But it's continuing to show the strength of the Sun Belt Conference.
Yeah, and to touch on your point real quick before we bring Michael in. So this weekend, Troy wins 37-3, South Alabama a 55-7 win, and then Utah State gets that 44-24 win. So want those teams to keep doing well because it just shows what we were able to do in those wins and why that first stretch of road games for JMU is so impressive. Michael, big weekend for your family. Crozet Plant Social opened their doors. Shameless plug for them. I know you guys are really excited about what you got going on there. Anything outside of just setting up the business that caught your eye around the college football world this week?
Yeah, well, appreciate the shout out. It's been an amazing last couple of days. We did our grand opening on Saturday, and really awesome show up by the Crozet community. So if you're ever around, we're right next to Crozet Pizza on the weekend, so come through. Wanted to add just a little bit more context to what Taylor was talking about, because I think we all kept an eye on opponents that we played before. And I think for the Troy game, right, I think their running back, Kamani Vidal, ran for 245 yards against, albeit Arkansas State, but he is now the leading rusher in the NCAA. I think he's rushed for like 853 yards. We held him to 26 yards, I believe, 3 weeks ago. And to add to that, Troy has since turned into an offensive juggernaut since our a slugfest of a game. They've scored 27 points, 28 over Georgia State, 28-7, and then 37-3 over Arkansas State. So giving folks just an idea of our caliber of defense. Same with South Alabama. They won 55-7 against a team that lost to App State by a 54-yard field goal. I think the score was 41-40. So as many of you know, we'll have App State coming into Bridgeforth in a couple of weeks. So really interesting scores there. And certainly, I think last but not least, been keeping an eye on our friends from the beach that finally squeaked out a victory over Southern Miss 17-13. I still think they're figuring out their offense, but it'll be a fun matchup in a couple of weeks on homecoming. So keeping an eye on our frenemies down there as well. So I too took a break from the cardiac Dukes, and I think it's been good for my blood pressure as well. But excited to be back against the Eagles of Georgia Southern. As many of you guys know, I was in the game last year against in Statesboro, and I saw them rush the field. So this is a game I've been eagerly waiting for over the last year or so. So go Dukes.
There we go. And Steve, the question I have for you after just your thoughts on what you saw from the college football world this weekend is the Cape ready? Will it be officially ready to be debuted in Bridgeford Stadium at noon on Saturday?
Cape is ready. We had the final fitting today. I've asked her if she wants to bring it in here. I don't know if she will. It is ready. And so other than watching what our opponents have been doing in the past, I've been watching what our new opponents in the future were doing. So I was watching all those folks, looking forward to App State's absolute obliteration of Coastal on Tuesday night. That will then knock them out of anything that's even relevant. So I'm hoping that they'll then be 2-4, and that'll be wonderful. So cheering for App State. Never cheer for App State normally, but I will cheer for them on Tuesday night really hard. On the other folks, the Georgia State didn't play either. Looking forward to Marshall heading down there to play them. Ran into two people today at the driving range that are Marshall fans that said they're concerned about going down to Atlanta, and they're really concerned about the Thursday night game when we come to town. And I said, good. I'm glad you're concerned. You should be concerned. I'm concerned about going to Marshall. I'm concerned really about Georgia Southern first. I'm not looking ahead, but it is Georgia Southern week, people. And I'll save my my end thing, but I can tell you right now, I'm excited. I'm pumped up. When you rush your own field, you're pretty lame. You won't see us rush our field when we beat your ass. But I'm humped. I have stopped myself from tweeting today because I know the guys need a day off, but I cannot wait till tomorrow to go ahead and really hit that Twitter hard. And I'm hoping I get a lot of these guys because they track you and they troll you from Georgia Southern, which I love. So I'm hoping they send me little tweets back like, are you sure? These little lame little tweets they send back. Take me on, dudes. If you got something to say, take me on. Bring it. You can't really bring it because we're going to bring it. All right, that's enough.
There you go. And Michael, I know you have one more thing you want to talk about before we bring in our first guest.
I think Steve hit on a point. It was our bye week, but there's these other fans that just love talking about JMU. I don't know if you guys notice all over the Twitter sphere and the social medias, there's some certain fans of southeast or southwest from us that just love having JMU and the purple and gold on their mind. And it's not Georgia Southern, I'll tell you that. So Taylor, I think that was a good segue for you, but very interesting find over the last couple of days.
Taylor, I feel like you've been involved in some back and forth for the ages recently.
I just post stats. That's all I do. I don't need to troll. I just post the facts.
The facts are what gets in the way. But with that, we'll leave that for another day. Really hope we don't play them anytime soon because I can't take any more Twitter back and forth with that fan base. So anyway, we're really excited to bring on our first guest tonight, Scooter Renkin. If you're a fan of this show from day one, one of our themes on this broadcast is about the importance of growing the donor base and the importance that fundraising plays in keeping this program and all of the programs at JMU Athletics successful and prosperous. And we wanted to bring on Scooter because we believe Scooter gives an opportunity to provide a little bit more context into what development means for James Madison. So with that, we'll bring in Scooter Renkin, Associate Athletic Director for Development at James Madison University. Scooter, thanks for taking a few minutes. Before we get into the specifics about development, there may be people out there that are unfamiliar with your story. You have a JMU story more than just being an employee at the university. So I thought I'd give you the floor right off the bat to let our audience know a little bit about your background and how you came to JMU first in your role as a member of the basketball program.
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan, and thank you guys. I love what you're doing. This is I've been staying in tune with this and staying in touch, and I know our the JMU fan base is as well. So just appreciate you guys, what you promote and the passion you guys bring to JMU athletics and JMU. It's being heard, and we love it and love to see it. So thanks for being, Sound Off is a special thing. So happy to be here tonight. Yeah, I'll do a quick overview of my history with JMU. I've been at JMU now 6 years. Before that, I came here to play basketball under Matt Brady in 2008, 2009. Didn't really see eye to eye with playing time. Me and Matt Brady didn't. We kind of I saw some writing on the wall that maybe this wasn't the place where I was going to have the best basketball career. I knew if I stayed here, I would have had the best education and experience as a student. But as a student athlete, I was looking for a little more as a basketball player. So I found my way to Indiana University of Pennsylvania, where Coach Signetti was coaching at the time. So that's a funny connection to how we both found our way back. Well, he found his way to JMU, and I found my way back. But finished my career at IUP and then got to play a little basketball overseas, which was fun. But all roads still found me, back to JMU. So 6 years here. Obviously, grown here, been able to grow within the Duke Club. Started as a frontline fundraiser in 2017, and then was a major gift fundraiser for a little bit, and now been running the Duke Club for about a year and some change. So been honored to work here and really build some really strong relationships with our donor base that has been really, really special. And this is many of you gentlemen on this call I know well from my 6 years, and we've built some great relationships and some great times along the way. A lot of successes, and I appreciate all of you and the support you have for our student athletes, and you're all Duke Club members too. So I appreciate that as well.
Scooter, talk a little bit about what the transition, not only to FBS, but to the Sun Belt, has really meant for the Duke Club. And as a fan base that was probably used to having one of the top budgets in the nation for their division, the top facilities in the nation for their division, do you sense any sense of apathy, or how can we get out there and tell that story better to let the JMU Nation know that, in order for us to maintain this success, there's a responsibility kind of on the fans and the alumni of this program? Yeah,
Taylor, it really, I think the best way is a number, and it's 5,600 donors. When I started here, I have my stats up. I can tell you what it was in 2018. We were at 4,400 donors. So that transition to the Sun Belt, to FBS football, we've seen it. The numbers have shown. We had a record-breaking year, over $4.6 million raised in our annual fund, and then really over $6.2 million raised in our overall fundraising, which is outside of the annual fund, which is capital giving. It's athletics restricted, it's endowment. So those were all record numbers, but 5,600 donors. For perspective, I started here in 2017, as I mentioned. We've been talking about Drive for Five. I'm sure some people that are listening in on the call, that was something that we were pushing for, which was $5 million annual fund and 5,000 donors. And that seemed far-fetched at the time when I first started, but we got to set lofty goals and we got to strive for something great. Hitting 5,000 was special. And then, hitting 5,600 is even more special. So that's a real testament to the excitement and the passion that our donor base has gotten around with this transition and this new conference and the way our football team's performing, but outside of that, how all of our sports are performing. Now that's not different than anything we've done in the past. The best thing about JMU is that we're a well-rounded athletic department. We win in every sport. Championships is what we strive for. From the top down, Mr. Bourne talks about that all the time, is we want to win at every level. And we want, a student athlete here in their 4 years to get a championship and then visit the NCAA tournament. So those are the touchstones of what we want to do here in the athletic department. But in terms of getting people involved, I talked about this before, a little pregame here with you guys, is, we need it needs to be grassroots. We need not just my Duke Club staff for perspective there too, we have myself and Dylan Thomas and Jared Lowry, my 2 development officers, covering essentially the whole country and the whole world, because we got Dukes across the world here supporting, to cover a lot of ground there with a staff of 3 development officers. The goal really is to have folks like yourself, people that are passionate, to bring their friends in, their suite mates when they were in school, the apartments parties that they used to go to, which are always great at JMU. All those people that we reminisce and talk about all the stories and all the great memories. Everybody leaves JMU very happy, and everybody leaves JMU with a great education and a great job lined up. And they talk so highly of JMU, but that support we still need to see it. We talk about this 6, 7, 8% of JMU alums give back. I'm almost tired of hearing about it, but we got to change the narrative. We got to change that story. And that means friends bringing friends in. We got to do it grassroots. We got to talk to each other. We got to send text messages saying, "Hey, have you supported this year? Are you a Duke Club member?" This means a lot. It means something. It's providing the best student athlete experience, which in turn gives great notoriety to this great university that we all care so much about. So it starts with connecting, and I'm obviously happy to chat with anybody at any time about the great things our student athletes and coaches are doing. And that's a part of the education process too, is making sure donors know what's going on here and feeling very tied to the Berg and JMU.
No doubt. And I think you hit the nail on the head, right? There's a tremendous amount of improvement, right? Still in terms of the Duke Club. For our listeners, those who don't know, I think Scooter and I went to school at the same time. We didn't know each other at the time, but I can attest he was probably one of the smoothest jump shots I've ever seen. And Scooter, you probably get it all the time, but I wish we saw that jumper more in the purple and gold. But what did start out there?
Mike, only thing you saw from me was doing what I'm doing right now, is sitting right here when I was there. That's some good warm-up shots, though. That's some good warm-up shots. Yeah.
Hey, some of the smoothest jumpers I've ever seen. I'll tell you that.
Thanks, man.
Awesome. Well, Scooter, thanks for hopping on and joining us today. You talked a lot about the growth of the Duke Club. You mentioned a record-breaking year last year. I think 5,600 donors. That's never happened before. Amazing things. For our listeners, right, and folks that may be on the fence on whether to be a donor or not, or folks that just don't really understand the impact, what does the growth allow in terms of donorships? What does that allow JMU to do for their students? When you think about the student athletes, the student experience, tell us a little bit about the impact you can have or potential new donors can have on the program.
Right. I mean, this is where thank you for that question. Really, this is where I go back to, you get on campus and you see the beautiful campus here. You see the unbelievable landscaping, the beautiful buildings. You walk into the athletic facilities and you see just top-notch facilities for our student athletes and students. That wasn't free. that didn't just happen. Donors supported those capital projects. They supported the great things that we get and have here to make our program successful. That came because of support. It just didn't come from state funding, which we get some of, but this is a lot of it's private funding that we need to raise money for our unbelievable facilities. And so giving to the Duke Club, and there's diversified giving. I want each and every donor to know there's obviously the annual fund, the Proud and True Fund. It goes to our scholarship bill for our student athletes, which our scholarship bill is over $10 million. We raise, as you guys have mentioned, $4.6 million. So that gap, that delta is filled by student athlete fees. I'd love to not have that. I wish, or not the student athlete fees, the student fees, but I'd love to be able to fully fund our scholarship bill by our annual fund. And that's the real goal. I want to hit $5 million. The real reality is I want to hit $10 million. And that's going to take more than 5,600 donors. And that's why we need 10,000 donors. We need, this number is, we got to set goals and we got to set attainable goals. But the real story is giving to the Duke Club. It supports our student athlete scholarship and our general operating budget. And the general operating budget doesn't sound fancy, and it's not, but the reality is the price of everything is going up, to travel for our team travel, to the upkeep of our unbelievable facilities, all of that supporting the Proud and True Fund, supporting the Duke Club is that's where your dollars are going, and they're providing that scholarship. And we're talking room and board here for a student athlete. The cost of a scholarship is, as we all know, is rising every year. Each and every one of those dollars is making an impact on each and every one of our student athletes. That's dispersed amongst our student athletes. And I think the important thing is, and I think this can be, I've heard people say this, like, well, I can't give $1 million or I can't give $5,000. It doesn't take that. It's $75 to become a Duke Club member. Every drop in this bucket matters. And as the price of everything goes up, we need that support. And know that it's going directly to our student athletes and making this athletic program the best in the country, which it is. But we got to keep up with the top dogs, and that takes funding. So this is a collective thing. It's not going to come on the backs of one donor or 10 donors. It's got to be the collective and the masses. And then I wish I could personally thank each and every person that supports. I'll do that here. Thank you to every one of our Duke Club members. This where we are today is because of you, and why our student athletes do have the best student athlete experience in the country. It's because of our Duke Club donors. We just need more of them. So the impact is being made. Your dollars are going to a great cause. And I'm excited about where we're headed. This is just JMU as always on the upslope here. And I'm just so excited for where we're headed. And I want everybody a part of this ride. And I think everybody here on this call knows it. But it's about spreading that word, and I'm going to do everything in my power I can to keep spreading that word. But the best people to tell the story is the student athletes and the coaches. So I want to get our coaches and student athletes in front of as many donors as possible, because they're the ones we do it for. They're the ones with the unbelievable backgrounds and the hard work and what they do to make all of us proud. So a lot of rambling there for that answer, but I'm just, as you guys know, I'm super passionate about this, and I think we could do something really special here in the next few years and beyond. Sky's the limit.
Well, before I ask you my question, Scooter, I'm going to put something out to the JMU Nation. And we're gonna set a goal right tonight. So we need 4,424. So that's 4,400 people to join the Duke Club to get us to 10,000. There's enough of you listening out there, JMU Nation, to help us get to 4,400. We all know somebody. There's 5,600 of us. All we got to do is drag one more person along, which should not be hard based on how good our athletics are doing. If you didn't watch Twitter, you didn't watch the game, our soccer team today tied and got a point against the number 3 team in the country, West Virginia. If you don't watch soccer and you say, I don't like soccer, that's fine. But it matters on the national landscape when JMU does something like that. All of our sports are top notch. We swept ODU this week. It's not really a royal rivalry until you actually have one. We don't really have one, so we're just going to continue to dominate ODU, and that's what the volleyball team did this weekend. Swept them, and they didn't take one of those games, one of those sets. So, at the end of the day, let's get 4,424. I'm going to deputize those folks out in JMU Nation to go do it. I'm going to do it. There's plenty of people we know as alums. If the parents alone of JMU students get their kids to join the Duke Club, that'll get us to 4,400. And so I will go out and make sure that my daughter, if she's not a member of the Duke Club, I'll get her to sign up. And my son, who went to UVA, will also sign up because they don't have anything going on over there at Scott Stadium. We do. So I'll get him to do it as well. So let's use our connections. But let me ask Scooter this question. If we get to 10,000, which I think we will, and we get to that 10 million that you need, can you speak to, because everybody's saying, well, we need to build out the rest of the stadium. And I love when people say that because they think there's a magic pot of gold at JMU that we just dig from, and there's not. So if you could just kind of let people know there's tons of projects we have to do, but for us to hit that, we've got to do a lot more from the giving side. And the reason that it's important that we just don't have a magic pot of gold to pull from, right?
Yeah, that's correct, Steve. I mean, as I said, the cost of everything's going up, but we have to maintain these great facilities, and we want, the funny joke in the development world is when there's not cranes or something on campus, that's not a good thing. We want to keep building. We want to keep growing. But part of that is well, really it's galvanizing the folks we need to, the folks that haven't given, and talk about what the story means and where JMU goes from here. That's such a big part of when I sit down with donors and or trying to, soon to be donors, hopefully after I speak with them, I talk about, what's their future of giving to the university? What are they passionate about? What are they looking ahead at? And I try to, obviously, I want to listen to them, but I also want to give them perspective on where JMU needs to go. Obviously you mentioned the other side of the stadium. Yeah, we that's down the road, hopefully sooner rather than later. But those are realistic things that are going to continue to build, to build JMU where we know it's headed. So I think the big thing there, Steve, is get to 10,000 and get to $10 million. But I used to work at NC State. They're over $25 million in their annual fund and 20,000 donors. At least that was where they were when I was working there. I mean, this is the brand. Not NC State, but this is where we want to head to. And that the culture of giving, or the culture to give back, is something that needs to continue to turn. It's a big ship to turn, but once you graduate, the idea should be, a lot of these universities have the mindset that as soon as you graduate, you're giving back. And I understand school is expensive, and that's why I'm not asking for thousands of dollars. But the culture needs to shift, that JMU still needs it. As great as everything is, and as great as our facilities and all the special things you see here, it still needs funding. It still needs donor support. So that's obviously something I've harped on here all night. But where we want to head is going to take the masses and the people that love this place truly. And I think we're seeing that. We're seeing that ship turn. It takes a while, but the culture of giving needs we need to keep spreading the word of it and what it means to support, which is it provide the best experience for, I'm looking outside of just athletics, provide the best student athlete experience, but the best student experience. I want people to give to athletics. I want people to be diversified in their giving, though. Give to the university. It's be engaged with the place that you love and had, got your education and set yourself up for the success that you're having. Know that JMU has a place in your heart. And I think that's where that mindset and that culture of giving can be really, really important.
Well, and Scooter, to finally wrap up with you, we know that you all launched an initiative this week. It's coming up on November 28th called Diggin' Dukes. Tell us a little bit about this campaign, if they didn't see it on the Duke Club social channels this week, and how this is going to play directly into that culture of giving that we're trying to develop at JMU.
Yeah, this is something I'm extremely excited about, Jonathan, and I think this is the thing that's really priority one as we look into the fall here. Diggin' Dukes is a sports-specific giving campaign. So we obviously focus on our annual fund, which is our lifeblood of our athletic department and our scholarship bill. But we want to support our sports-specific giving on this day. It's going to be November 28th. It's a day of giving. And then you're going to have the opportunity. It's essentially 18 individual campaigns rolled into one. So you can support softball, you can support cross country and track, you can support volleyball. So we really want everybody to give to every sport. But we're going to have goals for each sport. And they're going to go directly to that sports restricted fund for them to use for technology they need purchasing, for potential trips that they want to take, team building exercises. That individual sports specific giving is something that's very, very important to each and every one of our programs. So November 28th is the big day. I'm so excited for this because it's the first time we've ever done anything like this. Kate Burke on my staff has led the charge. She's done an unbelievable job building out this giving, this day of giving campaign for our sports specific giving, which is giving directly to a sport program to help their fund whatever they like to do. This is the cash they need, to do, as I mentioned, team building, technology that they need for recovery and things of that nature. So there's some really cool things that are going to come with this Diggin' Dukes campaign because it's the first time we've done it. And as I've said, mark your calendars, November 28th. This is going to help our each and every one of our sport programs in a massive way. So, but it's going to take the masses. I'll keep saying that. We're going to need everybody that day to support. But you'll also have an opportunity to support the Proud and True Fund. That will be one of the funds for that day as well.
Scooter, I just wanted to close us out as a Duke Club alumni on staff that worked there from 07 to 13. You guys have broken records and accomplished things that our staff could only dream of. And I want to give kudos to you, your staff. Dylan Thomas and Ashley Doyle are currently helping me with something right now. I got a text message earlier this week about someone who had a visit with Jared Lowry and just complimented how well he's done. So your staff is doing great things. I encourage everyone listening, take the visit. If you ever get an email, if you ever get a phone call, take the visit, because your contributions not only is your philanthropy, it's your network, it's your ambassadorship, it's what you can do for the Duke Club to help grow this. And I will echo what both Scooter and Steve said earlier, is that almost every major gift conversation that the Duke Club staff is having has come through not a cold call, but a relationship with someone bringing someone else to the table. So for everyone listening, if you're not a member of the Duke Club, get involved and be part of that 10,000 that Steve is talking about. If you are currently a member of the Duke Club and you get a phone call or you get an email from someone on Scooter's staff, take the visit. It's one of the greatest things you'll ever do for JMU. And it's a great opportunity for you to reconnect and learn about what's going on at JMU. So I just want to say, Scooter, thank you for taking your Sunday night to join us tonight. Really appreciate what your staff is doing. And to everyone listening, make sure you connect with the Duke Club sometime in the near future.
Thank you, Taylor. That was very, very kind of you to say. We're standing on your shoulders, man. The work you guys did at your time here, truly special. And that was when the Duke Club was really hitting its stride. So thank you for what you did in your time, and then what you continue to do, what all of you continue to do, which is spread the word about what it means to support the Duke Club and support our student athletes. You guys are truly the best. I do have an unbelievable staff, and I do want to thank them. They work their butts off each and every weekend. We had a nice bye weekend this weekend. But I work with an unbelievable crew of great people, and really across the entire athletic department. You're going to hear from Dr. Soenksen here, special person. Our admin team is truly special. I'm just lucky to work with so many great people, and obviously from the top, Mr. Bourne, 25 years of service. A big shout out to him. We're going to be really sad to see him go, but we know he's going to enjoy his home down at Lake Norman and being around his boys and his grandkid. So I just want a big shout out to Mr. Bourne and what he's done. I think all of you can speak on that for the unbelievable things he's done for this athletic department and this university. I'm indebted to him, and I think everybody is who's loved every bit of JMU athletics over the course of 25 years, his service. So just a big shout out to Mr. Bourne and the entire athletic department. We're in a really special place, and I use that word a lot, special, but that's because that's what this place is.
Awesome. And Scooter, before we officially let you go, how can people learn more about the Duke Club, and what are some channels that you'd like them to follow? I know you guys are on your social media channels as well, but what's the website where people can get more involved?
Yeah, jmudukeclub.com. And we have, we're doing a lot of new donor spotlights. There's donor spotlights that we're doing. We're writing stories about our donors, writing stories about our student athletes. You can see that on jmudukeclub.com. But yeah, please follow us on our socials. We're trying to grow that. It's such a great way to engage with our donor base and fans. So yes, jmudukeclub.com. You can see it right there on the screen. We got some, there I am at an event. That was a hot night on the rooftop at the Cork Hotel in Charlottesville. Steve can speak to that. So, but no, just please give us a call anytime. I share my phone number quite often with many of our donors and fans, and just know I'm very thankful for every Duke Club member out there, and I'm thankful for the ones that hopefully join after hearing this chat tonight. Can't wait to get back to the grind this week, and then next Saturday against Georgia Southern. Yeah,
awesome. Thanks again, Scooter, and you always have a platform here for any new initiatives with JMU. And as again, our goal from day one of this is to grow the brand and to grow the number of people who support the program. We're just glad you could give us a little more insight in people, how they could do it, and we'll continue to beat this drum because we know how important it is for JMU. So thanks again, Scooter, and we'll talk to you soon for sure.
You guys are the best. Thank you for what you're doing. I appreciate you.
And coming up next here on JMU Sound Off, really excited to bring on somebody that I'm going to officially call him what he told me to, Rodgers Soenksen, not just Dr. Soenksen, our faculty athletic rep and a member of the SMAD staff at JMU. Roger, thanks for coming on JMU Sound Off. For those who aren't familiar, I credit you and so many of your colleagues in the SMAD department for setting me up for success in terms of what I've done post JMU. You're never going to find a more proud advocate of what happens in SMAD at JMU. Seeing firsthand so many media students, so many graphic designers and videographers that I see on a daily basis in my career at JMU, and seeing them around the state of Virginia doing incredible work and around the country. So really, it's an honor for me to have you on, and just want to personally say thank you, because from SMAD 101, whether it was watching the movies on the big screen up at ISAT, to the classes that followed, it's been first class in every sense of the word in what you do. And just I know I can speak for the thousands of SMAD grads across the country. We're all very grateful for what happens each and every day in that program. But to bring it on to the athletic side, Doctor, give a little bit of your JMU story. And not only what you do for the SMAD program, but also what you do as a faculty athletic rep, because I'm sure there's a lot of people watching the show that don't know what that is, and the role that you play in terms of supporting student athletes on campus.
Well, Jonathan, thank you for this opportunity to talk to all your listeners. And I want to say you're emblematic of the reason I do what I do. It's a pure joy to see an individual who I see as a freshman matriculate, graduate, start a brilliant career, and is very, very successful in everything he touches. And luckily, I've had success after success with a number of students. So thanks for being here and giving me this opportunity. Probably, if you want to win a bar bet, the best thing any of your listeners could do is say, I bet you know a lot about the NCAA, and then say, what does an FAR do? And you're going to win a drink. Because to be honest with you, I've met coaches, I've met student athletes from other institutions who had no idea that FAR was a role. And actually, it was a role developed probably in the late 70s and early 80s. The presidents wanted to exercise more control. They saw the growth of the NCAA and the money that was going in, and wanted to make sure that the academic side wasn't lost in the entire growth process. So the faculty athletic rep role was developed. Every institution, D3, D2, D1, has at least one. Some of the P5 programs, Iowa, Wisconsin, UCLA, USC, Texas, they tend to have two, simply because they're covering 28 sports, and I'm merely covering 18 sports with 500 students. I'm appointed by the president, and I have a year-to-year contract. Our contract is a handshake. I go in May. I give my final report of the year about the status of academics at JMU, policies we need to change. And the president turns to me and says, well, do you want to do it another year? So far, he's never said, I'm going to appoint somebody else. But since 2006, I've been very fortunate under President Rose and now under President Alger to serve JMU as the faculty athletic rep. There's a lot of things I do, but trying to boil them down to something that your listeners would be interested in. I think number one, I advocate for our student athletes. I'm a tool in the academic toolbox that they have. It's not often, but occasionally we have to go to a tournament, a competition in which an exam is scheduled, a quiz, and the faculty member gets a little reluctant to say to the student, gee, I'll give you a makeup before or after the exam has already been out among individuals. And so what I try to do is to step in and act as a mediator and say, well, we have any number of different options. One, I can proctor the exam for the students so that you know the integrity of the exam will be protected. I can get a faculty member at the institution that the student athlete is competing in, another FAR, or another individual in the academic services to administer the exam. And that's an important role, because then the student athletes don't have that dread of having to try to push their faculty member to the point where the relationship is strained. And as a faculty member, I'm able to talk to another faculty member. None of our coaches pick up the phone and call a faculty member. If a coach thinks that there's an issue that needs to be dealt with, they call me. They call Jen Phillips, who's a SWA and the head of our academic services, and we work together. I work with the athletic academic advisors as a team member so that the voices are united in terms of the message that we're giving out to the faculty. Another thing that I tend to spend a lot of time on are academic policies. It might surprise a lot of your listeners, but our student athletes, when I came on board, did not have priority registration, something that I thought all athletes had across the United States. And the process of getting the registrar, who was very, very good in understanding, but likes to do things in a traditional way, said, I'm not comfortable with pushing the athletes ahead of everyone else. So we started with, okay, all the senior student athletes would register the first day that the seniors with the most credits. And then the juniors would register with the topmost juniors. Over the years, I was able to say, okay, let's get the seniors and juniors to register first before the other seniors. And that slowly then changed the atmosphere. And once we entered the Sun Belt, I was able to give data to the registrar that convinced her that indeed we should have priority registration. And now we register 3 days before anyone else. And the reason that's important for your listeners is we're trying to minimize lost class time. We have regional competition, which is fantastic. And I'm very happy that we're in the Sun Belt and in the alliance of teams. But the real key is you're still traveling to schools like Texas and Louisiana. And because of that trip, you're going to miss a couple days of classes. So that priority registration is very important. A second thing that I was a team member on that was able to really persuade the university to do is come up with a universal excused absence policy. Now, even though I'm an FAR, I look at the benefit I can have in my role to all students. And students, it didn't matter whether you were in the Marching Royal Dukes, you were in theater, debate, were in some classes being penalized. They weren't able to take exams. They were counted unexcused. And collectively, that could have a negative impact on their grades. So over the course of working with faculty senators, task forces, the provost, we finally have in our place now an excused absence policy that, number one, most importantly, if you're representing JMU in an official university capacity, you get the opportunity to miss that class and not be penalized in terms of excused versus unexcused. But secondly, and as important, it's key that you get to make up exams or quizzes so that your grade is not hurt in that particular aspect. And the final thing I'll say is I get to work with recruiting students. The student athletes who come, I sit down, I talk academics, and the president and Mr. Bourne have been very kind. The last 3 football coaches, I've been on the search team, and I've been able to get commitments from each coach about the importance of academics. So that is really important in terms of such things as being able to get those individuals who might have to come a little late to practice or leave a little earlier. That commitment has been important to me.
Roger, I had the pleasure of working with you when I was at the Duke Club. And
Taylor, I remember you, buddy.
I don't think everyone realizes just how lucky we are to have someone as committed to this role as you are, because everything that you just talked about indirectly affects every aspect of every student athlete on every team that we have. And so I want to say thank you both as a fan and a former colleague. But talk a little bit about, a lot of times I'm going to come from the development world here. The term academics being the front porch of the university comes up a lot. Talk about in your time, so going back to 2006, which is just a couple of years after the first national championship, to now, really how you've seen JMU's profile externally to folks, how it's improved with JMU's athletic success top to bottom, not just with football, but every team, and also the move to the Sun Belt.
Thank you, Taylor, for that question, because we're really proud of the academic success of all the student athletes we have. We have roughly 500 at this particular time period. And what we've been able to do is have athletic academic advisors who are trained by the universities work with those students. So they get double advising. They get advising from an eligibility and NCAA standard. They also get advising from their major. So that, as I think, really helped success of our student athletes in the classroom. We've also invested, thanks to the development office, in computers and in software that our student athletes need, and printing capabilities. We used to have just a very small area for them to study in. We now have the APC, we have 40 computers, some are Dell, some are Macs, but now all the new buildings, the AUBC and the Convo, Memorial are now complete study pods where the student athletes can come. They can not only practice, but they can also get training. They can also lift. Then we have advisors who are there for the academic portions, conduct study halls, etc. And we have the equipment that they need to compete in the classroom with outstanding students across the board. So all those things have helped us. And the bottom line is, I know we couldn't compete for a championship in football last year in the Sun Belt, but we did compete academically. There's 3 academic awards in the Sun Belt. App State used to walk off with all of them. This last fall, we walked off with all 3 academic awards. That points to the success of the student athletes and the quality of the students that our coaches are recruiting today.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get with, Roger. And I want to thank you because you and I served on the Duke Club board for a number of years, and I want to thank you for everything you're doing. Most people don't realize the impact you've had. They do now, based on what you've talked about tonight. But you and I crossed back in 1983 when I used to do some work for Dr. Morello and the debate team.
Mhm.
I was one of the coaches. I was still coaching high school debate when I was at JMU, and I was working with John on helping the JMU debate team. So it does go back further than either one of us probably thought. Wanted to ask you about kind of how you all help the student athletes really transition, because most of them don't go on to play after this, and really what your department and how you guys help them with the next piece of their career, which is going to be working. Can you just speak to that just for a few minutes?
Absolutely, Stephen. Give my best to your lovely wife. It was great to meet her the other night.
I definitely will.
I think if people look at Jeff Bourne's legacy, they'll see buildings, they see increase in terms of donors, they see increase in winning of sports. But I think one of the things behind the scenes is this idea of we have a Duke's Lead program. It is a program designed for after they graduate. And as a freshman, we bring individuals in to work hard in terms of cover letters, in terms of resumes. Then we build in mock interviews. Then we build in the ability to interact and start their networking around their sophomore, junior year. And then when we get to their junior and senior year, we actually bring back athletic individuals who have gone on and established this business and want to give back, because, you know, the best employee you can possibly get is a student athlete. If you think about it, they have to handle adversity. They have to be able to think quick on their feet. They have to be a member of a team and know their duties and responsibilities. Time management is key. So these student athletes are just so valuable in terms of the next step, in terms of careers. The Duke's Lead program is really valuable. And when I talk to recruits and their parents, that's a big selling point. Academics is number 1. The competition they get to meet here at JMU is number 2. But Duke's Lead is a very important component of that, convincing them that this is a place where they want to spend their 4 or 5 years.
And Roger, I wanted to ask you one last question, though, that I think is something that's always been in the back of my mind as a former SMAD student, but knowing just how much SMAD students on campus impact Kurt Dudley's world and the sports media aspect of what I'm so proud of what JMU does, whether it's photographers, videographers who are working on the live broadcast, broadcast students like myself who were sideline reporters for basketball games and who go around and help cut highlights, or people who work on Matt Cosner's staff. I saw in the announcement for the promotion of Kevin Warner that there at least is going to be some study about the possibility of growing the relationship between the School of Media Arts and Design and how JMU launches their live broadcasts through the various games and competitions that happen on campus, but obviously the new studio that is in the Atlantic Union Bank Center. I'd just be curious of your perspective on the potential for SMAD students to continue to do even more to tell the JMU story as we go through these various athletic events throughout the season.
I think all I have to say is flow sports, and I'll watch everyone cringe and remember how terrible that was, that the move to ESPN has really given both SMAD and the athletic department the possibility of doing things together, of increasing the marriage that we've already done. We've always had students like yourself really interested in building their portfolio. It's tough to do sideline reporting. It's tough to sit down and to write a journalism story as it's literally happening in front of you during a basketball game, or taking a sport like field hockey or lacrosse that you might not have a whole lot of background on and write a story or do the videography or the hype packages for. But with the advent of the AUBC, which is about a $1 million investment by athletics, it's a great studio. I just had a tour of it. And in SMAD, as you know, we have about a $1.2, $1.3 million high definition studio. We believe we're in a great position to grow SMAD in the area of sports media. And specifically, give a heads up, we are actually interviewing for an individual right now that would fill a brand new position called sports media and start to develop a concentration. Right now, we have a minor in sports communication, but with the help of the provost and President Alger and Jeff Bourne, what we see is a real opportunity here to become literally an area akin to Syracuse, where our students can come in a very early period of time. They'll get their hands on the equipment and they'll be assigned sports, and they'll work with quality professionals like Kurt Dudley is, of course, the individual who immediately comes to mind. It'll take 2 or 3 years, to be honest with you, because we don't build curriculum overnight. But the first step is we got to hire the right person, and we've got a job search on right now. Get that person in next year. They'll start developing curriculum and drawing some students in. And then, as you know, we have concentrations in SMAD. This sports media might evolve into a separate concentration, and we'll be able to handle a number of students in, and they'll go from us into the sports world in terms of professional opportunities.
That's awesome stuff. Breaking news. You're on JMU Sound Off. But Roger, I'm going to keep saying it for as long as I can and as long as anybody listens to me. What you do each and every day in the SMAD department matters. Whether it's in a career like me at the Red Cross, I'll never forget my SMAD 256 class and the my Capcom class with Joanna Holman, where I did my first press conference. The skills that I learned in that set me up for success in doing media interviews, and I know countless other JMU students who would say the same who went through that program. So on behalf of all of us, thank you for what you do for JMU Athletics. Thank you for what you do for growing students who, and as they launch their careers, it matters and it's appreciated. And we look forward to following your journey as you continue to advance the student athlete narrative here at JMU. So thanks for taking some time with us today.
Thanks, Jonathan. Thank your whole team. What you're doing for JMU is invaluable, and I listen to you regularly. So thank you all.
Well, we appreciate we'll have you on again. And with that, we're going to transition to looking forward to this week's game, a huge contest at Bridgeport Stadium, noon on ESPN2, as the Dukes get set to host Georgia Southern. And we thought it would be a great opportunity to have Danny Reed on from the Georgia Southern Sports Network. Danny, thanks for taking some time on your Sunday. Big matchup on hand on Sunday, as Georgia Southern, a team that JMU fans know very well from last year's thrilling game down at Georgia Southern. I'm just curious, your perspective, what are you looking forward to as we head towards Saturday? It's been a good season for Georgia Southern. That offense is clicking on all cylinders again. Just kicking off maybe some of your keys to this weekend's game for Georgia Southern, what you're looking to see.
Well, the fact that this game is really a rarity when you've got two teams that are both off of a bye week, it feels like it's shades of LSU and Alabama there for a couple of years, where the SEC made sure that both were off of bye weeks for a nationally televised primetime matchup. I know this is going to be at noon, but to me, it's really Georgia Southern's passing offense versus JMU's passing defense. That's got to be at the forefront. But if Georgia Southern runs the ball for 12 yards again, they're probably not going to win on the road. That was amazing what they were able to do last year, throwing for 578 when Kyle Van Treese just threw it to everybody all across the lot after coming back from 14-0 down. But to me, if Georgia Southern has the rushing number that low again, it's going to be very difficult to win a game like that, even though this JMU team appears to be quite different than what it was in 2022. It looks to be a very talented team, a very stout team, and at home, when it's 50-3 over the last 7 years, that's ridiculous on any level. So there's a lot to consider going into this one on Saturday.
Danny, when I found out that JMU was joining the Sun Belt, there were some of the obvious things. I was excited about being reunited with App State, obviously getting back into conference with Old Dominion. Georgia Southern is one of those programs that even before I came to JMU, one of my few familiarities with 1AA at the time was the Georgia Southern program. And I just have a ton of respect for that program. I was really excited when we had a chance to go down there last year. Was not thrilled with the ending, but there was part of me that at the end of that game, after I kind of got over that loss, to say this could become the beginning of a really fun rivalry. And it's almost at this point where I feel like there's good reasons why we have a strong rivalry with every member of the East. But I was looking ahead to this weekend. Saturday looks like it could be a little wet in Harrisonburg, and I was just wondering what you know about JMU and this year's Georgia Southern team. If it does end up being a rainy Saturday, what do you see the pros and cons for Georgia Southern being?
Well, to go back to what I said, if it's rated and Georgia Southern's got to run the ball a lot more, good luck against a team that's given up 1.3 yards a carry this year. But one thing that Georgia Southern does specifically in practice is every week they have what's called a Wet Ball Wednesday, where they will consistently practice with a wet football. And it seems a little odd when they're under the cover of the brand new Anthony P. Tippins family training facility to see a wet football under a covered venue. But that's something that they've done ever since Clay Helton got there in 2022, whether it's 90 degrees or 50 degrees, and the weather in Statesboro is going to be wishy-washy this week. It could be as low as 40. It could be as high as 80, just depending on what time of the day it is. But they do try to practice with a wet ball as much as possible to get ready for a situation like that. And granted, the quarterback's a little bit different, even though Kyle Van Treese was here for 1 year. Davis Brin is running the show now. The accuracy is a little bit better. He's about 70% of his passes. He tends to put the ball in some tough spots sometimes, but he's also going to make what seems like at least 5 NFL throws per game. There have been a number of throws every contest where our broadcast crew is just looking around thinking, how did he feel the ability to make that throw? How did he find that window? And really outside of the Wisconsin game where Georgia Southern turned it over 6 times, there have been some instances where you kind of, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Is this going to work out? Is it not going to work out? But he has been able to consistently move the offense because of the higher completion percentage. Georgia Southern, on average, is hitting 6 passes per game more than they did last year. Keeps the clock moving. It keeps the defense from subbing. And I think that's been a big part of how this offense has evolved in the second year with Brian Ellis running things. But we'll have to see how it happens on the road, because ever since the Eagles beat App in 2019 when they were top 25, they haven't been very good in conference play on the road. So we'll just have to see.
Danny, first and foremost, thank you for hopping on the line with us today. Really appreciate you joining us on a Sunday. Amazing story in Georgia Southern, right? I think Clay Helton comes in, takes a triple option team, decides to spread them out, go 5 wide, 500 yards passing. I think everyone on that team is probably some sort of record breaker in the passing yard books, right? For Georgia Southern as of late. Talk to us a little bit about, like, you mentioned Kyle Van Treese last year breaking records. What's the story behind Davis Brin? I know he was from Tulsa, 6th or 7th year guy. Like, talk to us a little bit about his journey to Georgia Southern, just for our fans. And number 2, Derwin Burgess and Caleb Hood, probably 2 very prolific receivers. How did they end up in a triple option system? Because I don't think they were Helton's recruits, right? Maybe you can correct me on that one.
No, Hood has been here since 2019. Derwin got here in 2021, and that was a big point that Coach Helton made when he arrived in November of 2022. He looked around at the talent for a team that was running the option, and he saw the ability of those 2 and think, okay, these guys can really fit into what we want to do offensively. Now, they're going to try to say it's as balanced as possible with running when it's given, passing when it's given. This team is going to try to throw between 45 and 50 times per game, but granted, they played an Old Dominion team last year that was drop 8 covered, so they ran it 50 times, got a narrow victory in Norfolk. But specifically for Caleb Hood and for Derwin Burgess, Hood set the school record for not only receptions but also yards. He's also Georgia Southern's career leader in receiving yards and catches. He owns just about every major receiving record that the school has to offer. Now, granted, you do have to put that in proper context when almost all of that was under an option scheme, but Burgess is fast catching up to him. He's going to end up being one of the best receivers in school history as well. But to get back to Davis Brin, there was a thought that he may end up at Wisconsin, which was ironic because the Eagles played the Badgers just a couple of weeks back. They took Tanner Mordecai from SMU instead of Brin from Tulsa, both being AAC quarterbacks. And I think that Brin was looking to do very similar to what Kyle Van Treese did last year. And if Kyle doesn't have the year that he does a year ago, maybe Davis Brin doesn't become a Georgia Southern Eagle. And I think that there's some truth to that. And the ironic thing is that through 5 games, their passing numbers are almost identical. I think Brin does have a little bit more in terms of accuracy, can run a little bit better. Kyle may have gotten rid of the ball a little bit quicker, but depending on the teams that you play, the number of sacks that are given up, tackles for loss, that can vary from year to year. So I don't know if that's necessarily fair to saddle one thing on the other. But Brin has acclimated really well when you've got the number of weapons he has surrounding him when you factor in Dalen Cobb fast developing into a superstar. DeAndre Buchanan is going to be a stud receiver, a true freshman out of Carver High in Atlanta, and then using any of 5 tight ends at any given time. And you've got a deep running back room with Jalen White, who was 3rd in the league in rushing last year, despite missing the last 2 games because of injury. O.J. Arnold is a stud in both areas, being able to run just as well as receive. And then Terrence Gibbs and David Bedenga have filled in where necessary. So if you think that you've got one part of this offense stopped, there are so many other layers that Brian Ellis is going to feature to try to hurt you.
Yeah, it's by far the best show on turf. I mean, I echo what Taylor said, and I'm so glad we're in the league with you guys. As much smack talk as I'll do about Georgia Southern and every team every week, I love playing you guys. I had a blast in Statesboro last year, except for the end of the game, but but I had a blast. I mean, it's fun to play people that matter. And you guys are passionate. I love that you guys packed out the stadium against Coastal. We have to learn to do that. I mean, we pack it out and then our folks leave at kind of halftime, or if we're up 24 to something, people take off, and you guys don't. I was so impressed, and I'm impressed with the App State fans too, that they stay. We're working on that. But I guess the question I'll ask you is, what scares you the most about JMU, if anything? But I know what scares me about you all, and you mentioned a bunch of them just now. I think you guys are better than you were last year, and that scares me. But what scares you about JMU?
The fact that they get out so quickly, consistently, and then when you're at home and you do that, when you're 14-0 at home, it is very, very tough to come back on somebody. And to the point that we made earlier, JMU's 50-3 in their last 53 home game, which is just silly. And that's for me to say that for a Georgia Southern team that is 4th in FBS history, winning better than 81% of its home games. But you also have to look at that JMU front. It is just dominant. It's one of the best in the country, Group of 5, Power 5. I don't care. I think James Carpenter is unheralded. I think he may be the best defensive lineman in the entire Sun Belt. Some of the numbers are gaudy, with 2 guys ranking in the nation's top 10 in tackles for loss. The 3-and-out percentage is insane. And then just getting the ball right back to that offense, which wants to chew clock. They force you to do things at their tempo. And I think back to last year's game, that was the script. JMU was up 14-0 before a lot of people could sit down. And then the Eagles got a red zone pick. They blocked a punt for a touchdown. They decided maybe running the football wasn't a good idea. That's why they ended up with 12 yards. But to turn Kyle Van Treese loose and to go 38 out of 64, first time in school history that the Eagles had 300-yard receivers. It was a seminal win for last year for a team that got back to the postseason. I don't know if you can expect the same when you go on the road this weekend, but I do think that this is a game worthy for the country to see. I'm really glad it went linear for JMU to back up its 5-0 start and to be as good as they've been at home. And also for Georgia Southern, if they truly become back after selling out the previous weekend. They haven't been great on the road in conference play the last 3 years, but this really represents a chance to show themselves and everybody else that this is not just an Eagle team that's better than average. This team can be really good, but you've got to win a game like this if that's going to be true.
So I remember last year's game very well. I made the drive down to Statesboro from Virginia, and I truly believe that punt block for a touchdown was the major momentum changer that game. And who knows what happened if it never happened, right? So a couple questions for you. So I'm thinking, like, I totally agree with the other guys, like the perception of Georgia Southern, and I knew of you guys like during the Paul Johnson years, triple options and national championships. What is the perception of JMU across Georgia Southern fans, right? We're the new guys on the block. We pushed some weight around last year, obviously tore down Coastal Carolina at the end there, crowned ourselves kings of the East. Like, what's the overall perception across the fan base and maybe even across the administration as well?
Well, that's the funny part, because these teams met for 8 straight years from 85 through 92, and Georgia Southern dominated the rivalry. They won the last 7 games. They had 2 huge comebacks in Harrisonburg in 89 and 91. Then they didn't meet for 30 years until last year. But Eagle fans have realized pretty quickly that what JMU did in the 1AA and FCS, winning national championships, routinely being them and North Dakota State every year, because that's where Georgia Southern was before the move up. They realized that, okay, this is not the same program that Georgia Southern was very successful against consistently in the late 80s and early 90s. And when you realize how quickly that game could have gotten out of hand if it wasn't for that Josh Thompson block punt. There is a lot of respect for what Coach Cignetti has done. But even before that, if you want to go back to Mike Houston, Everett Withers, Mickey Matthews, this is a program that they just win. And that's what Georgia Southern does. That's why the last little bit, 4 losing seasons in 7 years, is so atypical of the name that this program has made for itself over the last 4+ decades. I know JMU hasn't had a losing season in 2 decades, so they can relate to that. But this kind of matchup shows you where the FBS is now, with all the hubbub that's taking place in the Power 5 with realignment and trying to get into the Big Ten or the ACC or the SEC or whatever. The Sun Belt has strength because it has stability. Adding those 4 teams last year and putting an emphasis on regional rivalries, fan bases, passionate cultures, that's what makes this Sun Belt. I'd argue that it is the best FBS league in some respects. Now, look, it's not better than the SEC. It's not better than the Big Ten. We know that from a total standpoint. But in terms of stability and what a league wants out of its members and how they project themselves and the way that they just seem to go side by side and embodying values, you could make the case that the Sun Belt is as strong as anybody else in the entire FBS. And when you take these 2 programs, a Georgia Southern that 10 years ago was still in the FCS. They've had a measure of success. They've been very up and down since then, but it seems like they've latched onto something. And for JMU to have a 13-3 record jumping up and having success early, just like Georgia Southern did in 14 and 15, it's almost like looking back and saying this is the same blueprint that Georgia Southern just had. But for JMU, it's going to be the continual weekly challenges where you might be better than who's across from you, but the challenge continues to get more difficult because you're not facing FCS teams that you know you're going to dominate on a weekly basis. And it took Georgia Southern a long time to realize that wasn't the name of the game anymore. I'm excited about this just to see just how good Georgia Southern is, but also how good JMU is if they can back up the home record and if they get to 6-0, because I think if JMU does, they've got a very realistic chance to be undefeated by the end of the season.
Yeah, no doubt. And we have the utmost respect, certainly, for the Southern program. Love the insights here, Danny. You're obviously well threaded into the both programs. Love to kind of hear from you, right? If you were a fly on the wall in Clay Helton's meetings and you're thinking about what are the areas of improvement leading to this game, both teams, like you mentioned, having a bye week. What are some areas that he's looking to shore up versus the matchup with JMU?
If you're Georgia Southern, you're probably trying to figure out how to run the ball a little bit better, and you're trying to figure out how defensively you can get off the field as fast as possible. That's something that they've done really well this year with Brandon Bailey coming down. He went to Georgia Southern. He went to Eagle games as a kid. He's from Perry, Georgia, which is in middle Georgia, not terribly far away from here. He was a student assistant here, and he's risen up the rank extremely quickly. Now to come back here as the D coordinator, they're giving up only 30% on third downs, which is top 25 nationally. That's been a big key to complement that fast-paced, high-powered offense. You can score 35 a game and run 80 plays a game when your defense isn't on the field very long. And when they're forcing 3 and outs like they have been pretty regularly, just like James Madison, it helps that offense look even better. And I'm guessing that in JMU's meeting rooms, they're trying to figure a way to slow down this version of the air raid, because that didn't happen a year ago when the Eagles threw for 578. Now, I don't think that that's the case way up here, or it's the case on this side. Either it's probably somewhere in the middle, and it may level out a little bit. But I do know that each team has had more than enough time to figure out how to exploit the other's weakness, but also find a way to accentuate their own strengths. But for me, if Georgia Southern can't handle the environment, I think it's going to be a sellout crowd at Bridgeforth. I think it's going to be a hell of an atmosphere. If Georgia Southern can't handle that, then all we're talking about, none of it matters.
Well, Danny, for JMU fans this week who want the Georgia Southern perspective, maybe give a preview of some of your coverage this week, and where can JMU fans find maybe some of your clips and some of the interviews that you're going to be doing throughout the week?
Coming up tomorrow, Clay Helton's press conference will go on at 12:15 on ESPN+. We'll have our next episode of Inside Georgia Southern Football on ESPN+, newly branded football-only show for this year. That'll start 11 a.m. on ESPN+. We'll take a look back at the bye week, look at some of the highlights from Coastal Carolina. We'll have our weekly Hail Southern live show, which is a combination radio/Facebook live show that'll go from 7 to 8 p.m. You can find it on the Varsity Network, or if you search Georgia Southern Athletics on Facebook Live. You can watch it there. We'll preview the Dukes a little bit on the Inside Eagle Nation podcast coming up on Tuesday on gseagles.com and anywhere you get your podcasts. And then throughout the rest of the week, we'll be sharing some stories, some stats, because of the history of this rivalry. I mean, you're talking 38 years, so there's a lot of people around here that remember what JMU was like going all the way back to 1985. And just to see that where they both have been, but now what they're doing and where they've come from, it adds some compelling storylines to this. And we're excited to be able to flush those out a little bit more over the next couple of days.
Well, Danny, I can say you're in the right career field, because your insight and your the way you present yourself has been awesome tonight. So thank you for helping our fan base be a little bit more knowledgeable going into this game. And we hope you have safe travels as you make your way up to Harrisonburg. And thank you for what you do on the media side. We say that to all of the reporters who join us. We know it's a crazy landscape right now, so we appreciate your coverage. And I can tell you we'll be listening. I've already making notes about what shows I have to tune into this week as I try to learn a little more about this program. So thanks again, Danny.
Well, if there's anything else, I grew up in Cumberland, Maryland, which is about 2 hours away from Harrisonburg. So I'm even more excited to get back up there this weekend, if that helps y'all out, anybody.
Awesome. Well, safe travels, and we hope you have an enjoyable trip to Harrisonburg. And with that, we're going to transition to our final guest of the night, Annie Rodgers, our student correspondent. Annie, always great to check in with you. We want to have you on tonight because JMU 5-0 for the second straight season, a lot of buzz going around the fan base. Wanted to hear from your perspective, what has been the mood on campus? Obviously the win over UVA, we got a chance to see firsthand how many students made the trip down to Charlottesville. I was really impressed with the student kind of going back and forth in the lawn at UVA, seeing Cavalier fans and JMU fans, and then also seeing how many students stayed through the rain delay at Charlottesville at Scott Stadium. Just give us a little insight into the buzz on campus as we head toward this week against Georgia Southern.
Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely tell you the UVA game was huge for us. I think that was something that we were all really looking forward to as students, and having it only be 45 minutes away. I know a bunch of my friends, and myself included, made that trek, and it was an awesome experience. Staying through the rain was definitely a trek, but it was good, and it was well worth it to see that sea of purple afterwards, which was really cool. So a really, really great experience, and just getting that win has really amped up everything else. And then obviously having a 5-0 record has only helped with the hype for football. I think tailgates are bigger this year. Just walking around, seeing all the students there, they're up early. We had a 12 o'clock game last weekend, and everyone was there 6 o'clock in the morning, like they were ready to go. So I think the hype is definitely there, and the students are ready to continue that streak that we have going so far. And hopefully we'll be able to pull it out from Georgia Southern, but I'm hopeful that if we can, I think students will be even more excited about the rest of the season.
Well, Annie, you and I have talked off air a little bit about some of the things that we're hoping to do through social media, and some opportunities to do some more engagement stuff on campus. So I'm looking forward to working with you on that. Talk a little bit about your role with the Student Duke Club, and maybe what some of the things that the Student Duke Club has been doing, and maybe some of the stuff that any student listening to this can be looking forward to as we go through the rest of football season into basketball season this year.
Yes. So Student Duke Club is great. I was on the board last year, and I'm helping as much as possible this year. So I have helped them kind of get off the ground this season, and they're doing a bunch of t-shirt give outs, and they're trying to get the membership up. We already have over 1,000 members this fall, which is awesome. So we surpassed what we had last fall already, which is great. So we're definitely seeing that student action and student involvement with that, which is really exciting. I know the team is really looking forward to getting into basketball and kind of ramping that up for some half court challenges and all that stuff, which will be really exciting. So definitely a lot of ways for students to get involved. I know they're still looking for some board positions that are available. So definitely trying to get more students involved. We want as many ideas as possible to get people involved across campus. So I think it's a huge hype. And I think, there's only room to grow with the Student Duke Club. I think we can bring back tailgates in some capacity. I think that would be really fun. I know students are always asking me about it. So there is the buzz going around campus about it, and just kind of figuring out different ways that students want to get involved and get more traction with that. But again, the membership has been great this season, and we're excited to keep that growing as basketball season approaches.
Annie, first off, it was great to meet you in person at the South Alabama game. That was a lot of fun, really special moment with all 4 or 5 of us. In the last podcast, I talked a lot about the game day experience, the new music, the different creative ways. We had a DJ, right, engage the fans. Personally, I loved it. It felt like a brand new atmosphere. Definitely not the JMU I remember when I was in school from 08 to 12, or even in the last 10 years. Curious, am I finally getting to that point in my life, or is that same sentiment being shared across the student base as well?
Oh, yes, it was definitely noticed. The game day environment was so much better than I think I've ever seen it in my 4 years. But I mean, I can't even tell you, all of my friends who usually leave within the first 2 quarters were like, wait, this is so fun. This is great. They were staying until at least the third quarter and end of fourth. It was really, really great. The music was awesome. They were engaging the fans. I loved the like dog barking. It was awesome. That little added effect was really cool. So they really killed it with the game day experience. I mean, everyone I talked to, they were like, this is awesome. And this is just not what we're used to. And I think that really props off to them. They killed that game and really kept students engaged and excited. The atmosphere was really just exciting. There was a ton of energy in the student section. The end zone where I was just like absolutely buzzing with people screaming and getting excited, throwing streamers, and then the music would come on and everyone would start dancing and jumping up and down on the bleachers. So it was a really, really cool environment that we haven't really seen at least in the third and fourth quarters for quite a while. So it was a really cool thing to bring that back and kind of keep that energy going throughout the second half.
Is there anything else JMU can do to kind of keep the interest? I mean, do we need the Wi-Fi? For me, still doesn't seem as good. So it seems to kind of it kind of dies out, and I don't know if you need better Wi-Fi to stay engaged or something like that. Because not that you guys aren't engaged, you guys are super. I just didn't know if there's anything more you could think of. And I also want to. That's my question, but then I'll throw in. Feel free to have you and your students come to the tailgates. You know, come to GLOT, come to PLOT. We love seeing you guys come through. We'll feed you. We'll give you all kinds of stuff, whatever you want. But it's nice. I mean, it's nice for you to interact, I think, with other alums, because those are good connections for you guys, post grad. So it's good to meet a lot. I mean, most of these folks are business owners or at least pretty high up in their corporations that they're in. So please feel free to work those lots. Maybe you don't want to, and I get it, because I wouldn't want to spend a lot of time with a bunch of old people. But if I can get free food and some free drink, it might be worth at least taking a pass. So just wanted to throw that out to you. But my thing is, what else can JMU do to kind of keep you guys engaged, if anything?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, if there's free food or free drinks, I'm there on the tailgate. I can promise you that. So I can guarantee you I'm not the only student who's going to say that too. So I will we'll pass that around and we'll start working our way down that way for sure. But in terms of stuff JMU can do, I've been asking a lot of people that, and I think the biggest thing that's come back is definitely like bad cell service. That's been a really tough struggle. Trying to get in contact with your friends, figuring out where they're sitting. You lose track of someone. It's obviously very easy to do, and then you can't find them. Personally, I'm not going to stay at a game if I can't find my friends or people I know. So I think that's a big factor. It's just like, okay, I don't have anyone to sit with now. Where do my friends go? That type of thing. I know the alcohol prices, obviously we love having alcohol sales there, and there's not a whole lot they can do in terms of the prices, but I think that's a huge factor, as well as we're broke college students, and finding those prices a little bit higher than we would love is kind of tough as well. But some ideas would be like raffles or something at the end, towards the end of the game, where they just kind of throw out like, a free parking pass for a faculty spot for a semester, or a free meal plan for a semester, something along those lines, that, your name can be entered into, but it gets revealed at the end of the fourth quarter or the end of the game or whatever. Throwing out t-shirts or extra rally towels or streamers to the student section towards the end. I think that would be hugely helpful. Maybe if they did more food races instead of just the one, I think that would be awesome. We're always looking for discounted food or anything like that. I mean, anything free, as ridiculous as it sounds, college students love. So if we can even get a discount on something in the stadium, I think that would keep people a lot longer. I think we're just kind of struggling with 12 p.m. kickoffs are tough for students, and tailgating is great, but sometimes people tailgate a little bit too long or too early, and then they don't actually make it to the game, or they make it to the game and they need to leave pretty soon. So I think we're kind of battling some exterior factors as well, but I think if they could improve definitely the cell service and maybe bring in some more interactive stuff towards the second half, that would be helpful for sure.
So half price food and half price booze if you come in early. We get you in at 11:30 before a noon game.
That would be perfect. I would be there. I
Good.
mean, I'm there the whole game anyway, but I would bring more people, and I can promise you that would make people stay a little bit longer for sure.
All right,
Awesome.
JMU, you've heard it out there. So here's what we'll do is if you can guys do that, I'll help JMU raise the money that will help offset that, because I'll get a bunch of my friends to give to that. If you need money to offset it, let's do it to get the students there early, to get people there early. Let's do half price food, half price booze.
There we go.
There you go. Annie, you've helped again provide more feedback and insight that hopefully will shape the JMU decision-making trees. We try to, once again, not only enhance the overall stadium atmosphere, but by keeping students in the game, keeping them engaged, keeping them passionate, that's going to better fit not only my fan experience, because seeing the students raucous, seeing them crazy makes it more fun for me. That's going to help the teams on the field. So we appreciate you sharing your insight and looking forward to the content you're going to be helping us create over the weeks to come. So have a great week of classes, and we'll hope to see you again on Saturday.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for having me on again.
Awesome. Thanks, Annie. And with that, we'll do our final thoughts, guys. A really great discussion today. I know I learned a lot. I did not know all that Rodgers Soenksen does for the JMU Athletic Department. So that was really awesome stuff. Go to you, Taylor, first, your final thoughts heading into a huge matchup on Saturday.
I'm thinking back to how excited I was in 2008 when Montana was visiting for the playoffs, and to see an ESPN banner in our end zone. And it not be a regional Comcast channel. I just thought that was so cool. We are about to have our second nationally televised game at home this year, our fourth nationally televised game in our last 6 games, with Marshall coming up after that. And I would expect for a couple of these other games later in the season to get picked up. This is a really exciting time for JMU. And it's a time that we don't get to, frankly, guarantee ourselves in the future. It might be wet Saturday. Prepare for it. It's a noon kickoff. Get there early. Get in the stadium early. Let's have that stadium full when the team runs out. This is a team that we're really excited to play. There's a revenge factor. They stormed the field when they beat us last year. I think that says something for what they think of the JMU program. They respect us, but they want to beat us again. They want to play spoiler again. This is a big game. So all I can say is enjoy. I said it last podcast as well. Enjoy these moments. Enjoy this season. We are 5-0. We're going to be 6-0 after Saturday. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a great game. But do what you can to get out there, get there early, and just go Dukes. This is a great time to be a JMU fan.
Couldn't agree more with Taylor there. I think for me, this is an awesome opportunity for this program and this team, this year's team, to really prove what they got, right? Like, we've seen it. I think Taylor had some amazing stats in the last podcast around how good this defensive back room is, right, in terms of passing defense, and how good they've been 99% of the time. It's those 1, 2, or 3 plays every game that blow up our passing yards. So it's really exciting to see, like, our opportunity against arguably one of the top 5, top 10 passing games in the country, and seeing what our pass rush can do. So a lot to look forward to. I'm excited to see another ESPN banner like Taylor had mentioned. I hope that we don't take these games for granted. I hope we don't look at this as another day in the Valley or another JMU game, or we don't look at it as we'll be up 21-0 right in the first quarter, because we never know. So be there, be loud, drink hard, drink often, and really looking for us being 6-0 Sunday morning.
Here you go, people. It's the robe. Alice made the robe. It is ready for Saturday. You're going to see it all over the place. JMU football is going to go down Know Your Role Boulevard, turn a right on Jabroni Drive, and proceed to check your candy-ass Georgia Southern into the Smackdown Hotel. Know your role and shut your mouth. If you smell yada yada, what JMU is cooking.
Wow. I don't know what to say. I can't wait to see it on Saturday. Guys, thank you. That's priceless. We're going to clip that one, Chandler. As always, thank you to Chandler Fortune for your work behind the camera tonight. Want to thank our guest, Scooter Renkin, Associate Athletic Director for Development and the Diggin' Dukes campaign. Stay tuned for that on November 28th. Rodgers Soenksen for the JMU SMAD department, as well as a faculty athletic rep. Danny Reed from Georgia Southern Sports Network, and Annie, as always. Want to do a quick plug once again for our Sound Off store. Seeing a ton of posts on social media from people who have purchased our stuff. Got a couple of campaigns that are wrapping up on the Sound Off store, so be sure to check that out at jmusoundoff.com. Get your t-shirts. We know the holidays are coming up. We have some new designs coming out. As always, thank you to Andy Lynn. Looking forward to being there on Saturday. Also on jmusoundoff.com, you can find recaps of all our episodes. And then as well, follow our Instagram account at JMU Sound Off. We have some interesting content that we're going to be rolling out throughout the week. Thank you to Taylor Adkins, who creates our graphics for Instagram. And with that, thanks for our interactions on all the podcast platforms. Last week's episode was the most listened to episode in Sound Off history. Let's try to make this episode the most listened to. So when you're on those platforms, if you can, take an extra second to subscribe, rate the episodes. That really helps us grow this platform. We're just appreciative, as always, to our sponsors at the Montpelier Collective and Skyline Financial for their support. And with that, we look forward to seeing you next week on Sunday after the Dukes game against Georgia Southern, as we preview our matchup against Marshall happening on Thursday night, our first weeknight game in the JMU landscape in the Sun Belt. With that, go Dukes, and we'll see you next week.